Welcome back to A Fresh Story, the podcast where we have conversations about brave decisions to start over again. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Olivia, and we're so glad you're here today.
Hello there, sister.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. I am sitting here with my latte from one of my favorite places in the whole world. Cheers. We both have lattes because we went together. We went to Southdown Coffee this morning and we saw my best friend who works there, Astrid. My favorite story about Astrid, who's an amazing, I think she manages, she's one of the managers there. When I booked my ticket to Scotland the 2 days after I started talking to Thomas, and then I canceled it, and then I woke up the next morning and I was having all this drama with my ex. I came into Southdown to grab a coffee, and poor Astrid made the mistake of saying, "How are you?" And I told her how I was, and I said I just unloaded on her in a kind way, but in an emotional way. Talk about emotionally dumping. And she, who was a psych major in college, I found out later, was like, "I'm really sorry. I hope this turns around for you." And then I came in a couple days later. She's like, "How are you?" And I was like, "I am so much better. Thank you so much for asking." So since then we've been buddies, and we just love that place. We're big fans of the original Southdown.
I was going to say, yeah, we've been following Southdown's journey since they started in Southdown, which is, it's called Southdown because it was originated in the Southdown part of Huntington Village. And we've been following their journey, and I've been a big fan lately of their double chocolate spicy vegan mocha latte.
Yeah.
A lot to get out. And
Olivia gets it a little less spicy, and it's so cute because they all know, like, a little less spicy for Olivia.
It's so good. And they have a vegan chocolate whipped cream that they put on top. And I'm not particularly vegan, but it is really delicious. So that's what we're drinking today.
I do wonder how much they'd charge me for a cup of that. Just fill it up so I can eat it with a spoon. I'm gonna ask one
like
day.
A dessert. You could make it cold like a mousse.
That's true. You know what they also have there? I don't know if they have it anymore, but they used to have art like on the walls that you could buy, which gets us to our guest.
Yes, we talked to Samantha. She is an agency owner in marketing, and she came to us via the marketing channels, I think on Twitter. And we had a really fantastic, really beautiful conversation about parenthood and the sheer and utter exhaustion that parenthood brings to the point of like unhealthiness. Yeah. And how to heal yourself from that, as well as a really interesting conversation about her marriage that they opened up and trying to fix things, and a fantastic chat at the end about art and the beauty of bringing art into your world.
And what to do when you're too exhausted, when you're a creative who's too exhausted to create. I thought that she had some really good words of wisdom on that.
Yeah, so enjoy Samantha's episode, and please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to A Fresh Story so that you never miss an episode and get to follow along. Samantha is the CEO of Formation Media, a full-service digital marketing agency for artists and lifestyle entrepreneurs. We're so glad you're here today with us.
I'm so happy to be here.
So Samantha, can you tell us the start of your Fresh Starts story?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of always evolving. It's not just really one fresh start. It's been multiple over a lot of years. And, it wasn't like kind of one big moment that kicked off the first start. I feel like I kind of can break it down into like steps. So, you have that initial realization that's like, things aren't going to they're not working for me, and it needs to change. So, just recognizing that these patterns and these things that I'm doing is just not working for me anymore. And then after that is just kind of intention. So what am I going to do about it? Setting those goals and then making that plan. So like, I feel like sometimes I stay in that realization phase for a little while. And I'm just like, okay, I know that things need to change, but I don't really know what to do or where to go. And then, eventually I'm like, okay, I see maybe a little ways out. So let me start making a plan, and then just putting that into action. And then kind of like, as it's in action, just letting it flow and letting things take you where it's going to take you. Because like my dad always told me growing up, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I grew up, just like, make your plans, but be loose about it.
I love that.
So another thing my dad used to say is that life is 10% of what happened to you and 90% of how you react to it. And
I
he would
love
make me
that.
do that like every morning before school.
I love that. I love that what you just said, kind of as the initial start of your fresh start story, was such a powerful framework for like anybody's fresh start story, right? Like it's this hero's journey, right? Like that little whisper, and then you have to have that call to action. And then that, I like that you said that you were in the realization stage for a long time. I think a lot of people are in the realization stage for a long time and don't realize that they are, right?
Mhm.
So what was the story kind of that was happening and kind of the impetus for all of these big changes in your life?
So much happened at one time.
Okay.
From like 2018 to 2019, my husband he wasn't my husband yet, but he was in school at the time. He graduated. Immediately I got pregnant, and we then bought a house. So that lasted about a year. Then 2020, the pandemic hit. I launched a business and had to go full time because I lost my job, my full time job. And, he was fresh out of school. So financially, things were a little bit tight. So I was just managing all of this at the same time. And as my son got older, he was getting sick a lot. He had a lot of ear infections, and it hurt our health as well, because like I wasn't sleeping.
Mhm.
And just having to manage everything while also not sleeping,
Yeah.
and then having that extra element of having a sick kid was really just so much to handle. And then, we had a lot of failure in communication between me and my husband, and a lot of kind of outbursts and stressors there. And it just like wasn't working. So over time, as like I just kind of always like, it was like this ever present just weight on me.
Mm.
And I felt so stuck. And then I started to get sick a lot myself. So like
Mm.
2 times a month I was getting sick, and it started to spiral into financial troubles with the business. Like I wasn't really able to keep up with,
Yeah.
because I was a solopreneur at the time too. Like I've
Yeah.
expanded then, but doing it all on my own, I just wasn't able to. And I was like, something needs to change. And that was the realization. It was actually my dad again. He called me and he was like, even for having your son in daycare, it's not normal to be sick this much.
Mm.
So I think you might be depressed and you need to look at what's going on in your life.
Oh, interesting. You know, it's so interesting. I'm a fellow mom myself, and it's so funny to think we are walking around the planet and all these moms and parents, and it can feel so isolating though, right? It's like you feel like you are the only one not sleeping at night and the only one who has a sick kid constantly. And logistically that you're not the only one, but it feels like you're the only one. And I found I have also led much of my life with intense sleep deprivation. We don't really talk enough about the damage that sleep deprivation can do to you. How did that, I mean, and I think what you said was so interesting. It really spiraled everything, right? Your relationship, your work. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of like how the domino effect happened from all of that?
Yeah, I mean, the sleep deprivation, it got really bad. So at first it starts out just, you're kind of drained and you're still pushing through. And everyone says, sleep when they sleep or take breaks during the day, but there was so much to
Yeah.
manage that you just can't. So, I was powering through with caffeine, which also started to spiral into me like having drinks at night too.
To bring it
Because
down, right?
exactly, I had to bring
Yeah.
my caffeine intake back down, and my son would wake up all night long. So I had to sleep deeply for small chunks. So it was almost like medicinal, but in a negative way.
Yeah.
Which also all of that contributed to like moodiness and short fuses. Eventually there was stretches where it was going so long that I was like hallucinating.
Yeah.
So it started to be really problematic, where I would have to be like, okay, and say to my husband, I actually can't do this anymore. And, a lot of times those conversations would lead to that, like, well, I'm doing all I can. Maybe you don't appreciate what I'm doing. You don't see what I'm doing. And it got to the point where I was just like, I get it. And right now, I'm sorry, but I don't care
Mhm.
how you're feeling. I
Yeah.
am hallucinating. I am at a point where
Yeah.
it's just,
Dangerous.
yeah, it's
Dangerous. Yeah.
dangerous to everybody involved. And
Well,
that's, you have to break that
there's
cycle.
such an idea that you're going to have like parity in a relationship like that, and that like everybody's going to do the same and everybody's going to need the same. And it's, and if you, especially for women, right? If you have a husband that's at all involved, you're lucky. And it's like, there's, pregnancy and having a child is not a body neutral experience. That takes a lot out of you. That changes your hormones. You're not coming into it the same as your husband is. And there are times when, just between my sister and I, even one of us needs more sleep and one of us needs less sleep. And, or with my partner, like there'll be times where like, I only need 6 hours, but he needs 8. And then sometimes I need 10, and it's this idea that like, he's like, well, I'm doing as much as you. And it's like, at a certain point, it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter. I'm hallucinating. That's got to take precedence. Like it's got to be more important than anything else. And I just think it's such an interesting idea because women are just striving so hard for the equality in the household. And can you help me? Can you get on board? Can you do 50%? It's like, sometimes I need you to do 75% because I'm literally seeing people like it's not healthy and it goes beyond. So I very much understand that.
And that was one of the things that we had to talk about. Eventually we did decide to split and we're going through that now. But one of the things that we still talk about is that compromise, and that like, it's not, he was always trying to be equal all the time. And I was like,
Right.
compromise and balance and equity in the home. It's not about always being equal. It's about taking, sometimes one person is doing a lot more and the other person is doing less. And then the other one picks it up and the pendulum swings that way. But, the balance has to happen. So you're there to support each other when one's down. So it's not a constant state of balance, as long as overall the bigger picture is when it comes to relationships. And I think that's where a lot of our tension ended up, was just the idea of equality.
Yeah. And I think that's a very common thing. So talk to us a little bit, because I feel like I have in common with you. I was also a solopreneur. I also had an agency, totally sleep deprived, had little kids, had a husband that was not, the equal. How did this affect your business and your client work? And how did you function to try to get everything done?
So that was really tough too. And he did, so he is helpful. So he would come home from work and, watch our son while I would work late hours. And I did kind of have to piece things together and work a little bit more slowly. Because when you are sleep deprived, you make mistakes. So I would take a little bit more care with things that I was doing, take a little bit more time to review things. But even so, eventually it got to a point where I was like, I can't look for clients and do the work and really put in that grind time, because there's just not enough energy to last me through the whole day. And eventually I got a business partner to solve that problem. So realizing that I needed that help and then figuring out how to do it was like, okay, I have to maybe give up some of that solo role and partner with somebody, establish a team. And kind of, it was nice because I did, as much as he was helpful, I was still lacking that strong partner that I kind of envisioned. So I kind of found that somewhere with my business partner, where I was like, okay, there's my team, and he's solid. And I know that if I need to go sleep or whatever it is, she's got it.
Yeah. We were just
I
talking
always
about that.
say that the closest thing, if you want to like marry your sibling and you can't marry your sibling, you can start a business with them, because it's basically the same, it's like a different kind of same relationship where you have to sort of compromise and work together and support each other and all these things. And I think very much a business relationship can mimic a marriage in hopefully a beautiful way, like you were saying, like you finally were like, okay, there's somebody that's there to support me. That's beautiful. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. And she's actually pregnant now too. So, I'm going to get to be there for her as she goes through everything, and can help her like, okay, I've already done all of this with balancing the work and the baby. So, I can be there to support her and say like, everything's going to be fine.
I love that. So you were in this dark place. And then what happened? What came next after that?
So my husband and I tried to salvage things,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of led to another awakening, really. So we tried to open the relationship, which is a terrible idea when you're struggling. That's not the time.
Yeah. Well, nothing sounds more exhausting to me than an open relationship, like logistically.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was interesting times. And we were just saying, we have our son, we have to put forth every effort.
Yeah.
So this was like the last thing we were going to try. So as we were doing that, we started going in the apps and everything and seeing kind of what that world was like, because neither of us had any experience with any of it. And that's when I kind of realized that maybe I was like a little bit more sexually fluid, and that was some of the issues that we were also having with that intimacy. And he always kind of felt that I was like bro-y with him and more friendly, and I was like, okay, this is starting to make a little bit more sense. So that kind of tension did lead to something good, in me being able to live a little bit more truthfully. And then in that, it kind of helped me reflect back as well on everything in my past. So I started looking at my past relationships and realizing that, I used to be a big drinker, especially in college. And I realized that most of my relationships, I was drinking the whole time. So I had very few encounters with men in the past that I wasn't drunk for. And as I got older, I drank less and less. But I think that, paired with looking back, I realized like alcohol doesn't really do anything for me. I get violent hangovers too. So I stopped drinking as well. And that, another great thing that came from it. And I just kind of started implementing all of these like small changes over time, and building on all of those things. So as I would have these new realizations, like, okay, what else can I fix? How else can I take more time for care for myself and new directions, and kind of open up a new path for myself.
Why, and you don't have to answer this one if it's too private or intimate, I totally respect that, but why was opening the relationship, why do you think that was the move? Why was that the tactic that you guys decided to choose for hopefully saving the relationship?
It was actually kind of like a twofold thing happening at the same time. So the way that we kind of go about emotions was very different. I am a little bit more closed off. I compartmentalize a lot of my traumas and my emotions, and it's funny because all of my friends are the same way. We all just like, we have a goal, we focus on what needs to get done. We'll deal with our feelings later, but we have to go about our day. And he is much more kind of emotionally on his sleeve and needs a lot more kind of comfort and reassurance, and wants a partner who can do that for him. So he needed that. He also needed the physical touch, where I was so like anxious and stressed out all the time that I was like, just get off me. I'm not even cuddling. Like, was like, I just don't want anybody to touch me. I need to sit down and just like look at my phone, at night.
Yeah.
So we were having all of those issues, and he felt that he didn't have something that he needed. So I wanted to give that to him. And I realized that I just couldn't give anymore. So I was like, maybe you can find somebody else to give that to you.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, I had met a girl who I was like, kind of sparked my interest. And I was like, So as we were talking about that, I was like, well, actually, this might be a little bit more fair than we're initially realizing, because there is somebody that I might want to dive into that with, because I had never really had experience before. So I was like, this could be something where we both grow.
Right.
So that's what we kind of decided on. And we first started where we were going to maybe try dating together, but that's not really my thing. So then we were like, okay, we'll try it separately. And we really didn't even actually get to that point where we were, it fizzled out before we even got there, just because of boundary setting and boundary breaking. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of conversation. And I already talk a lot. I'm like, I don't need any more conversations.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just constant, like, resetting boundaries, reaffirming, talking about feelings before and after everything you do. It's a lot.
But your
Yeah.
communication must have been very strong with your ex-husband, or, at the time, your husband, right? Because that's a lot of communicating and talking about all of the plans together. So I would imagine that you had to have a good foundation, even if you weren't necessarily the right match, or, meant to be together. It sounds like you had good communication with each other.
So that was actually the big realization, was that we didn't. And no matter no matter how much we were trying to say, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is what I am thinking and feeling about this, we just weren't getting it.
Interesting.
Right.
On both ends.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
You both really wanted to communicate. It just wasn't working.
The conversations were happening, but the actual application of it was not happening.
It's amazing that two people can want to communicate with each other and still the words fly past each other's heads.
It's the first time we've ever experienced this with another person too, because we are both very social people. And I just thought it's so strange that we ended up together being two people who couldn't make it like a normal conversation work.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I was with my ex for 10 years and we had a good solid relationship, and he always would tell me, and I worked in project management and account management, and I literally communicated for a living, and he would always, if I said something and he misunderstood it, I communicated wrong. It was my fault. And if he said something and I misunderstood it, I understood wrong. And I was like, it's amazing to me. And that I'm always the wrong one. That's fascinating. How is that even possible? Mathematically, that's astounding. And it's funny to think too, we were two people that were not on the same level, communication wise, emotion wise, sensitivities wise, needs wise. And it's what is it? Is it this thing that we think opposites attract and we go with that? I don't know. But I think a lot of us find ourselves in that situation.
So after that, we decided to officially separate. We're going to do the divorce. We're actually still living in the house together. We just have to sell it, going through that whole process. But things with, our son are good. And we're taking the time apart. We don't really hang out at night together or anything like that. And we're doing custody week to week, which now is great because we're in the house, so I can still see him every night. It's going to be a little bit harder, I think, when we're living in two separate houses. But to your question before, that it is going to be nice to have a full week where I can wake up and work from 6 a.m. to 11 at night if I wanted to. Nothing is going to kind of stop me. But
you can sleep past 6 a.m. too. That's another hint.
You can.
You went through a lot of these big fresh starts in the last couple of years. What were some of the tools or the, support system that you used to kind of go through this healing process and come back to yourself? And, besides getting some sleep, did you do therapy? Did you have friends that supported you? Did you have, people that you worked with or books that you loved? Or how did you find those little things to help you along the way?
I did do a little bit of therapy. It's really tough to, I think, find a therapist that works for you.
Yeah.
So, it was nice to talk it out, but I was I think I can do this with friends, and get the same kind of thing. So I do agree with therapy. I think everybody should be in therapy, but I still need to kind of find the one that
it's hard.
Yeah. Oh, it's so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. And people don't talk about it. Go to therapy. It's okay. It's go find a car. I mean, these things are hard to do. And so I very much respect that. And when you're doing the thing, when you're going through it, it's the last thing that you want to think about is going to find, and is this person going to call me back? It's such a thing. So very much understood that.
I know so many people who have been ghosted by their therapists, and myself included. They just like eventually, if you don't make the appointment, they don't check up or anything. And I have ADHD, so like I have my meds now, but before I was like, I'm never gonna consistently do this. You need to help me through that, you know?
Yeah.
Were
Never
you a
finished it.
late in life diagnosis for ADHD?
Yes. So
Me
that was
too.
actually one of the things is when I went full time, I was having a really hard time managing everything on my own. And I was like, I can't get up every 3 minutes. This is not working. So I started seeing the doctor. And I knew that I had it kind of, but it was actually TikTok that helped push
me too.
Olivia too.
Oh, yeah, and you're not the first podcast guest to say that either. We've had multiple women say that. Yeah, it's interesting. And it's interesting the parallels, right, between a lot of these women that we're talking to, myself included. You know, people who kind of run their own businesses, entrepreneurs, you know, moms who get maybe in these relationships where they're people pleasing, you know, their spouses. And you know, for me it was inattentive ADHD, and so I had these constant chatter in my head and thoughts, and I thought that was normal, right? It's like, and it for me manifested as anxiety my entire life. And it wasn't until Jenny started sending me TikTok videos, and I was like, this isn't normal. Not everybody has constant conversations in their head. And so I also went on medication, and it was life-changing. It was life-changing. For me, it was very nuanced, the changes. Did you notice like the little tiny changes in your life once you started medication?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the prioritization of tasks I noticed was so different. I would be doing something that was off track, and I would actually stop and be like, what are you doing? Go back to your desk. And I've never done that before. It was always like, oh wow, I'm cleaning my room now, and that's what I'm going to do for the next few hours.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about being an entrepreneur, and, you know, like, how did you start your company? How did you find a business partner? I'm always curious about that because I pulled my sister in to work with me, and now we work on everything together, but that's just because she's my sister. So how did you find
I'm
your
a
business
Nepo
partner?
baby is what you're trying to
You're
say.
a Nepo sister.
I'm a baby.
What do you know, what I know you have a big agency, you work with a lot of, you know, things. So tell us a little bit about kind of your journey in entrepreneurship.
So it actually started it back in 2019. And once I realized that I was pregnant is when it kind of really kicked off. But the starting of it, it was New Year's, and me and my friends were just sitting around a table, and we were like, we're getting older, and we're all at these jobs that like we don't really love, except for my one friend who is upset. He works at Wegmans and he absolutely loves it. So everybody but him was like, you know, we're at these desk jobs, and you know, we're tired of working for other people and building their businesses. We need to have some sort of joy. And everybody that I know has like a lot of creativity. So we were also like, how do we become creative in our daily lives? So one of them wanted to start an art collective with a bunch of artists working together, resource sharing. The other one wanted to start a woodworking business. And I am like, I can say I can do art, but I'm not very creative. Like I can't really get things from my head onto paper. Verbally I can, but not visually. So I was like, my skills are in, you know, public relations, advertising, and social media. So I can help you guys. And that's kind of how it was born, is they had these dreams, and I said, you know, I have these skills, so let's all do this together. So I helped them launch their businesses, and it was mostly focused on like events. So that first summer we had a ton of events. It was so much fun doing all these like craft fairs and different galleries and showings and stuff. Obviously then the next year the pandemic hit. So from there I was like, okay, what am I going to do? The virtual events like didn't really hit. So we tried a couple of them. I had a virtual art party. It was actually really fun. Cool. I just invited people to all come onto a Zoom, and we all painted together. I gave everybody a prompt, and we just awesome.
Yeah, it was I love that idea. I love that.
it was all ages too. So, there were little kids that were sharing. And at the end, we shared like what the meaning of it was. And some of the little kids were so impressive with like what their meaning of their paintings were. I was like,
Mhm.
wow, like the kids, they're okay.
The kids are going to be all right.
I
Yeah.
love that.
So it did, but the galleries and everything virtually didn't really take off the way that we wanted them to. So as I was watching the trends, everybody was kind of flooding Etsy and coming online. So I said, okay, how can I still help everyone? And we pivoted to digital marketing since, I graduated from my master's in 2014. So they said, oh, you're young, social media. So that's kind of the track that everything took professionally for me. So it's like, okay, I have those skills. Let's do that. And from there, it kind of just grew into the entire agency.
I love that. And I love that. And how did you find your business partner that you ended up with?
So my business partner, Jen, is actually a friend of mine from high school. We met my sophomore year, I think, when we were like 15. And she had already been graphic designing. She taught me how to code my MySpace pages and my layouts.
Classic.
Yes. And we actually had planned when we were teenagers. She had this idea she wanted to throw like a local music show. So we planned a show together and we like got all the bands together and booked the venue, did the promotions, everything. And she's just like that type of personality. So when I became the digital marketing agency, she was my graphic designer and web designer.
Okay.
Then, I didn't have a lot of web projects for a while. So we kind of, weren't working together for a few months. And eventually I just messaged her again and was like, hey, do you have any interest in maybe being a partner? And she had just left a cryptocurrency job during the crash. So she was like, this is actually perfect timing. And that's how it kind of all synced up.
I love that. I have a question. So I know for myself, because you remind me a lot of me in a lot of ways, that you love to help people. You have the digital marketing mindset. I can't
have a business partner named Jen.
Yeah, that also. I mean, I can't sit through a brunch with friends and not give them business ideas and come up with names for their businesses. It's like a pathological thing. I found that the hardest part of like postpartum and having a young child was the push and pull of wanting to be creative and having all these business ideas and literally not having a second to comprehend anything else besides taking care of children and the house and everything else. Did you feel like that there was like that strain for you also of like this, like, I really want to use my business and marketing brain and I don't have the capacity for it?
Absolutely. One of the big things that I love to do is like these really big campaigns, like advertising campaigns, and having everything work together. And you come up with this big idea, and then you can have all the pieces, and it all kind of flows. And when I would work on those, once I got that big idea, I could sit in front of the computer without the meds for hours and just go through everything. So I really missed that. And even little creative things, my friend bought me a sketchbook and was like, hey, start drawing at night. And I was like, by 9:30 or whenever he goes to bed, I don't have any energy to do anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's a great sentiment, but I just, when you're drained, you can't be creative.
No,
So
I agree. And I find that that's like as a writer, as an artist, like it's something that is such a it really can lead to a depression, I find, because you're stuck in between these two worlds of like I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a homeowner, all these things. And yet I'm still an artist. And like I found for myself getting back to that part of my brain was like coming home again after many years. Did you find that as well?
oh, absolutely. And I've started slowly realizing that I can't output. So like let me input. So I started doing things like a little more
Smart.
looking at art, when I could get out of the house, going to an art gallery and just kind of, appreciating again, learning, reading, podcasts and things like that when I was able to. So then
I love that.
That's very smart. But like, I like that.
I know. I love that. I'm thinking about, wow, you just like blew my mind with that, because
Yeah.
as an artist and a new mother, let's say, and you're stuck home with a baby, and I found well, I have two sons, and postpartum for both of them, it was like something flipped on creatively in my head, and I was like, I need to create all the things, and then you have a screaming child with you all the time. So what a beautiful sentiment to say to new moms, like, take your baby to an art museum, go look at the beautiful art, or go walk through a botanical garden and look at the beautiful colors of the flowers. I love that idea of the input instead of the output, because it's almost like it's giving you the life force instead of you putting your life force out to create things. That is what a beautiful thing to think about. I love that.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and then you have that for when you are ready. So you've absorbed all these things and maybe you have new inspirations. So when you have the time eventually, in however many years that may be, you can start to put that out.
But it's so important to absorb all forms of creativity, and it does stick with you. Like, it does stay in, it absorbs into you. So you're 100% right. I love that idea. I've never thought about that. That's
I know.
really smart. I learned something
Wonderful.
today.
I know, Samantha. I love that. So along your journey of kind of like, going from being this new mom to now, you're in this better place in your life, were there any things that you found really helped, like tools or books or documentaries or anything, that your podcast that made you feel like you were on your way?
I think there was a lot of like little nuggets from friends that kicked things off, and then just kind of journaling, I think, helped a lot, and getting my mind in the right place. Like, when you're dwelling on things, it's easy to keep yourself stuck. And the little things, especially in a relationship, I thought that it was kind of keeping me in that negative space too. So to journal and just get it all out of my head was really helpful. So that way I'm like, okay, I don't have to hang on to this. I don't have to worry about like forgetting it.
Yeah.
Even though I should forget it for some reason, you hang on to it to protect yourself. So it's like, it's in that little binder if I want to protect myself.
I love that.
So that was really good to just cleanse that out. And then focusing on my health, I think a lot was good, because getting in that habit, just like of having a glass, like a tea at night, and making sure you're eating things with vitamins, and it's just taking that switch to think about caring about yourself. It changes the way that you're looking at everything, even something little like, I have to make sure I have like a little bit of iron today. It starts there, and then you start to change your whole kind of worldview, where you are taking the time, because then you see how much better you feel with just the one change.
Right.
And you start to slowly kind of implement other things.
Yeah, we always say at Fresh Starts, when you can change the things around you, the things around you change.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, but it does it. I love that. It's the little tiny things. And, it's also having the belief that when you change the little thing, like, right, like taking your vitamin, it's going to lead to the bigger things. Right. Just like, with your story is such a great example. One fresh start begets another fresh start, begets another fresh start. Right. And so the little changes do add up. It's a domino effect, and the dominoes can go either way. Right. You can have the negative domino effect and the positive domino effect. And I love that, it's all these little shifts can add up to the bigger changes, which are really positive, and can just add so much more to your life. So I love that. What advice would you give to somebody who's, kind of in the beginning of the journey, whatever the fresh start is, about, what they're going to be going through during their fresh start process?
I would say it's okay to take the time from something else and put it towards something more important. Like, everything might feel like it's the most important thing in the world right now. And kind of in the same way that someone with ADHD would go about their life, like, break it down into smaller chunks and then prioritize it. And those things that aren't in the top 3, like, you can bump one of those to take care of yourself. That everything isn't as important as you think it is. And if you let one of the balls drop, as long as it's not like your mortgage payment, then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be fine. And I think in doing that, sometimes you will get other opportunities that, might not have come about if you
Yeah.
were still focusing on those things.
Yeah.
And also, kind of be a little bit more loose with things. I was always a little bit rigid because in the way that we do talk about, you can spiral into good or spiral into bad, I would kind of like look so far in the future. If I do this right now, then this is going to happen and that's going to happen and that's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. And that's why I can't do this. And I have to just sit in my house and work and work and work,
Yeah.
because if I take my eye off the ball, then this is the result.
Right.
So it's like, just relax, like it's
Yeah.
not gonna,
Surrender. That's the surrender, right?
Surrender. Yeah.
It's you're holding I mean, I do the same thing, right? You hold on so tight and you're like, if I finish this client work tonight, then the rest of my life is going to be perfect. And it's like, this has nothing to do with anything.
No.
So, you need to go to sleep. It's 12:30 at night. Yeah. Totally. And I was going to say too about your journaling, as somebody with ADHD, it's so important to journal and I don't do it enough. So I'm talking to myself here, but to get the ideas out of your head because you're walking around with not just the ideas in your head, but the fear that you're going to forget the ideas in your head. Right. So it's like you're holding all of these different components. So I love that you're journaling and that you made that part of your healing journey. I think is awesome. And then the last question we always like to ask, which is a fun one. What is the last thing you ate that you absolutely loved?
oh, the last thing I ate. I'm still working on my diet, honestly. I eat a lot of leftover chicken nuggets. I had some coconut butterfly shrimp the other day with some sweet Thai chili sauce. That was really good.
That sounds really good.
Yeah. And then I've been getting into a lot of more herbal medicine as a complement to traditional medicine. So I've been doing a lot of teas and things like that. And I have this new like elderflower lemon balm tea.
That
So
sounds great.
yeah, it's really good with the ashwagandha in it.
Oh,
that
calming,
sounds
very
lovely.
calming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, what's coming up for you in 2023? How can we support you and how can everybody listening, get in touch with you and support you and learn more about you?
So one of our big projects, actually, it's kind of on par with what we've been talking about. We're helping launch a series of mental health shows, short form across social media through Sprout Media. They're one of our partners. So we're also going to be collabing on a lot of things moving forward. So that's one of our major projects coming up. We're also trying to build out that production side of things. So we're scouting for more video content for social media. So we're looking for clients that want some help there.
Good to know.
Yeah, we do a lot of like mental health as well as the art-based. And we would love to do some more artist branding projects as well. So yeah, anything like that. We're open to really all new clients, and we love to hear kind of what people's ideas are with where they want to take their business and help work with them to make that happen however they want it to.
It sounds like you love art very much. Is that a part of your life? Like you keep coming back to art. I like intuitively feel like you love art. Is that something that's part of your joy in life?
It is. I feel like, a lot of the times I have to be just so direct with what I say all the time. And it's just nice to be able to like look at just this abstract way of communicating instead of just saying exactly how you feel all the time.
I love that. Do you have a favorite artist?
I'll shout him out. One of my best friends is actually, he just is like blowing up on TikTok and Instagram right now. He's Flight of the Ibis. So he does a lot of surrealist drawings. So he is my favorite artist.
I love that.
Yeah, but traditionally I love like Dolly. I love, Frida. I have her candle, the like religious candles. I have one that I light for creativity. I also have a Ruth Bader Ginsburg when I need to dissent and feel powerful.
We all do. You light up when you talk about art. You really do. Like, you can see that it fills you, and that you don't just love art, but you love to bring art into the world and help people bring their art into the world. And so I'm so excited that you are on this path and the journey and doing what you're doing, because you're clearly doing exactly what you should be doing, because it's in alignment with who you are. And I just love that. You can see, in your whole demeanor and your face, and you glow when you talk about all of these, the combination of the social media and the art and the digital marketing and the campaigns. And I'm so excited for you. And I feel like you're going to be doing all these big things coming up, and we're just really proud of you and your journey.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I feel like things are aligning. I'm very calm when I wake up now, and it's strange, but I think it's a good sign.
Yeah. That's really funny. Sorry.
Calm is strange, but calm is good. No, I love that. I love that. Well, we appreciate you sharing your story with us today. Thank you so much for being here. And for everybody listening, all of Samantha's information and links and everything will be in the show notes, so you can get in touch with her and hire her to do all of your campaigns. Thank you so much for sharing, and all of your fresh starts, and for being here. Thank you for listening to today's story. We're always here, and we're proud of you. Until next time, brave one.
A Fresh Story is brought to you by Fresh Starts Registry, the first and only platform for everything you need to start again. You can read the show notes and learn more about today's episode at freshstartsregistry.com/podcast.